It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Yes, you beautiful souls, welcome back. We're still live celebrating the most important month. It's Pride Month and it's happening every June. Now we see an increase in the visibility of the rainbow flag as Pride Month is celebrated in the US and increasingly across the world. Now the symbolic celebrations are still in the face of major discrimination against and misunderstanding of the community. So we're taking the opportunity to discuss this morning, and in the midst of Pride Month today, we're asking the question, what is the best way to be an ally to the LGBTQ community? Now, we've got clinical psychologist Asha Dullabh alongside Kim Windvogel, who is an activist and compiler of the 2019 book, They Called Me Queer, as well as the writer of the new book, Touch, are here to help us discuss this. And we're taking your questions and comments via our Facebook page, so come through with that. But before we get into that magic, let's chat to the specialist. Asha, how are you doing this morning?
Good morning. I'm well. How are you?
I'm fantastic, and I'm so excited just to be able to get educated and learn so much more about this ever-growing community that needs to have a huge voice, because they are present among us all, and we're all human beings at the end of the day. So I wanted to ask you, I mean, what is one of the most difficult parts when one comes to the identity of who they are, and especially dealing with that struggle of coming out and being me versus that living in fear, so to speak? I mean, what's really important in terms of being honest in this whole world that we live in?
Sure, I think the ability to speak one's truth is very important, but of course it comes with a lot of fear attached to it. It's a very difficult journey to actually go out and speak one's truth, because it's associated with a sense of feeling of safety, and not all people will feel safe coming out. And the big question many of them ask, well, what will it cost me to actually be truthful?
Yeah.
You know, and one is to always think of what context they live in, what cultural background, religious background they come from, because that will actually give them perspective of how safe they would feel to come out. But of course, being honest, authentic, speaking your truth is ideal and very much needed.
Yeah, and the polarity of that for me is shocking. Imagine not being able to be yourself and being suppressed and not living a truthful life. Kim, I'd love to hear your input on this, because I absolutely love your perspective. Now, most people say LGBT just for the sake of brevity, right? But this encompasses a large group of people with multitudes of identities that, in my opinion, are still being discovered. And the full contemporary acronym is actually LGBTQIAAP. So, I mean, what is important to note about how much more inclusive this acronym continues to become?
Yeah. Well, I think if you look at the history of the acronym of identities, as you call it, it started off as LGB, which was in the 80s and early 90s as lesbian, gay, and bi. And that was the community's effort in terms of making it a community of people of different identities that can come together and work together and sit with each other in solidarity. Now, it's been about 30 years, more than 30 years since then, and we have evolved so much. People have self-identified as various sexual and gender identities that are not welcomed within the hetero or the straight world outside of our community. So I believe that what's important to note is how inclusive this acronym has become, how welcoming the community is, and how open we are to ever-evolving language and the political landscape, and how we change our language to incorporate more people so that they can self-identify as who they are.
Oh, I absolutely love that, and I love your perspective on things. Maybe, Asha, let me ask you this. I mean, speaking about the acronym itself, I mean, we are aware of some of the more popular terms, if we were to call it that, but let's talk about some of the less identified with, or the less known terms. I mean, we're talking about things like questioning, intersex, asexual, pansexual. Can you educate us? I mean, I'm sure Mzansi is dying to know more about this. We want to learn. What does it all mean?
Yeah, I think I personally also want to say, I think the acronym eventually will expand to the whole alphabet one day, because we're all evolving with so many variances.
Up until it just turns into human.
All the 26 exactly letters of the alphabet. But I think that if you look at questioning, that is the person that is still trying to discover who they are. They may be in doubt, they're exploring, they're questioning themselves. The pansexual, pan means all, so this is someone that's open to all sexes, genders in relation to their sexuality.
Yeah.
And of course, you have asexual, that is not actually wanting to engage in any kind of sexual or sensual activity with any one or particular individual. So yes, it's a variety. The intersexual looks at a whole variety. It's an umbrella term that covers a variety of different sexual anatomy and chromosomes and genitalia, that covers just the reproductive system as well. So as you can see, it's a variety, and that's why eventually I say it's evolving, and it's going to include so many variances, and we all just need to sort of get a greater understanding about these.
I think what you're saying is so important. We do need that understanding, and that's exactly why we're here, to unpack some more of this conversation, to educate Mzansi, myself, and everyone included. And you do not want to go anywhere, because we will be carrying on this conversation with Kim and Asha a little bit later. We've got 2 more segments coming up. We're going to dive deep into it, but let's start celebrating Pride and continue, because Jamie's got some good news for us. Let's check it out.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Yeah, we're live, we're back, we're still in charge. It's Monday, and we're here on the Expresso show, opening up on S3, and we're talking relationships in the midst of our Pride Month. We are asking the question, what is the best way to be an LGBTQ plus ally? And we're back with our clinical psychologist, Asha Dullabh, and activist and writer, Kim Windwochel, to unpack this topic. So do weigh in with the questions and comments on our Facebook page, and we might even be answering you. And, let's pick up from where we left off. So, Asha, earlier we were discussing some of the less familiar terms when it comes to this entire movement. More importantly for me, and I think this is maybe something that personally applies as well, what is the process when it comes to being an ally for the community? You know what I mean? What are some of the tips to becoming a good ally? Someone that maybe doesn't necessarily identify with one of the acronyms, but still supports the cause nonetheless. I'm here for the fact that we are human beings and we need to be our own genuine selves. What should we be doing?
Well, it's definitely a message of positive support for this whole group, and the characteristics of a good ally would be someone that listens carefully and with attention to the individual, and also just accepting their story, their narrative, without any judgment, without any discrimination. It takes a person that has good leadership, ability to kind of research and to read a little bit about the acronym, and to really become knowledgeable to help and support this group. Very much needed.
Yeah. Now, I think, especially when it comes to the space, you get individuals, let's call them heteronormative, right? I think, would you not say that it's quite important, or what is your opinion when it comes to the importance of listening, like you mentioned now, and also understanding to prevent that issue where it comes to erasure, essentially? I mean, it's quite an important thing not to be dismissive, to acknowledge everybody. How can we improve on that? How can we approach that?
Well, you see, we need to, the whole term of erasure is about discrimination. It's about ignoring, dismissing, re-examining, re-explaining, downplaying these unique groups of people. And it's about raising awareness and having more talks like these where we can actually speak about it and educate so that we gain greater understanding. Yeah. We are a society that's evolving. Generally, as societies, we're not used to anything that's new. We like to be we're comfortable with what's familiar. So anything new, we become reactive. We may just say remarks that, that makes us feel comfortable. So it's about really, it's about discrimination. It's about speaking about the level of, let's accept human beings for who they are, for their authentic, let them just be who they want to be, because everybody's doing what they want to do.
It's so true, and we need to respect that, but I think the learning is so important. And Kim, maybe I can ask you this question, seeing that we still got you on the line. As much progress as has obviously been made, the reality, unfortunately, is that there's still people out there that are misguided or misled. They don't know what's going on, and intentionally they might discriminate, or maybe even the situation where you see people being attacked in the community with words of violence, and that's simply because they just don't believe in this community. What's the damage that's actually being caused by things like homophobia, transphobia, biphobia, and I guess any discrimination against people in the LGBTQ plus community?
Well, I don't think it's just a damage. I think it's intersecting damages. So let me try and break this down. I mean, the damage can be medical. Last night on Carte Blanche, we saw Intersex South Africa speaking about how doctors perform legal genital mutilation on intersex infants purely because they believe that they need to fit into the binary of what your sex should look like and within this binary world, right? And so that is one of the damages. It's socioeconomic. Employers refusing to employ someone who's openly queer or who they suspect to be queer. So that means that it's also structural because you can't be employed, you can't pay your rent, and therefore you might be homeless. It's cultural. A queer goes to church, the pastor calls you an abomination of God, and then parents disown you. It's the hate crimes that we see happen every day. Tens of people have been murdered, queer folk have been murdered this year in South Africa. And all of these damages linked together. It's not, one isn't worse than the other. Just the doctor who performs intersex genital mutilation on intersex infants, the parents who disown you, the employer who won't employ you, and the people who murder our community, all of this forms together to form a massive damage to our community. And that's why when Asha said that allies should listen, they shouldn't just listen, they should implement what they are hearing within their spaces. You don't have to be an activist to change people or to change people's behaviors. You should change your own behavior and you will be able to shift the behavior of other people in their hearts and minds. I'm hoping.
No, I think you don't need to hope. I think what you're saying is so pertinent, so true. You definitely are hitting the nail on the head there when it comes to the fact that we don't need to just change the entire world. We can start with just changing ourselves. And I absolutely love that. Kim, thank you so much. We're not going to finish this chat just yet. We've got some more coming right at you. And we're going to be diving deeper into this discussion. How can you be an ally for the community? And also, how can we get involved to support this beautiful cause? We're diving deeper, answering some of your questions as well. So come through with that. And we'll see you in just a bit.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back, you beautiful souls. This is the final conversation of this beautiful segment where we're talking about Pride Month, talking about an ally and, of course, relationships in and amongst the beauty of Pride Month that we celebrate today. And we're asking the question, what's the best way to be an LGBTQ plus ally? And we're back with clinical psychologist Asha Dullabh and our activist and writer Kim Vogel on the line to unpack this topic. So please weigh in on the conversation, on the questions, and come through on our Facebook page. And Kim, I've got to thank you so much for sharing some of the beauty that you already have this morning. It's so good being educated by you. And again, just inspired, to be honest. Now, when it comes to June, it's a month that we are celebrating. It's celebrated in the US and lately also around the world. And that's obviously us talking about Pride Month, which primarily as a commemoration of the Stonewall riots. You can kind of share or see a lot of what has happened, but can you share some of the significance of these protests and why is it important that the LGBTQ plus community celebrates Pride?
Yeah. Well, I think that South Africans are no strangers to the importance of protesting and the importance of commemorating these protests and the progress that happened because of them. Just last week, we celebrated Youth Day. The month before that, we had Workers' Day. The month before that, we had Freedom Day. Before that, we had Human Rights Day. I think you get the gist of what I'm saying. Yeah. Regardless of your sexual orientation, protesting for progress has always been within the DNA of South Africans. And so I think that's the significance of protesting, and everybody, regardless of your sexual orientation, can understand that. But yeah, so I think these protests are important. They progress where we're at. And then also, I think I wanted to also speak about how we call this June month Pride Month in South Africa. So June month is actually World Pride Month, which is celebrated in the US, and the rest of the world has kind of co-opted that as a way to also stand in solidarity. South African Pride, which I hope Expresso Show will also celebrate this year and every year, actually happens in October, and that's because the first Pride in South Africa happened mid-October in 1990. And so that is why South Africa celebrates Pride in October as a localized version of, World Pride that happens in June. And I think what's important here in terms of the significance of these protests and also of these months is that as much as it is encouraging to see brands and big corporations come on board and try and support the community and the communities that is within this, as we call it, acronym of identity, it's important for brands to do it in a way that is sensitive to the community. If you're going to have a big product that you're going to be selling, or if you're going to be taking part in, as they call it, hashtag rainbow capitalism, do it in a way where you pay queers to be a part of your campaigns, where they are the people behind the camera, in front of the camera. Make sure that your workplace is inclusive and non-discriminative of the community. Don't just put a flag on your brand and expect us to, to flock to what you are selling us, what you are trying to or the environment that you're trying to create. Fix your house first before you come and invite the community to spend money at your organization or at your business. And I think that's very important when it comes to celebrating things such as Pride Month.
Kim, I loved how you just wrapped it up, and such a beautiful way to say that. We shouldn't just be talking about it. We should be questioning big brands, especially to say, what are you doing? Thank you. I love that. Now, Asha, just to get into the last bit of the segment, because learning is important. Obviously, it's something that is so essential to this entire sort of process becoming the norm, which it should be. Is there somewhat of a burden on the community when it comes to expressing, explaining, talking about this? Or is there something more that can be done? And how can we prevent this burden from taking a real toll? I mean, constantly having to explain who you are yourself every day, it can't get much, right?
It can get much, but I think it is important to explain because we're needing more understanding. Remember, it's really a tough journey for this community because they are suffering a lot of fear, shame, guilt, the hatred. So the more explanation, the greater understanding. Remember, it's also a process of isolation in oneself, within societies and the nation. So I think that with more greater awareness, it's just the way we represent the whole topic and talk about it.
Asha, I mean, every now and then I'm surprised, but today I'm impressed. I can't thank you enough for educating me, for teaching me about what this whole beautiful community is about, how we are all at the end of the day just human beings. And I think that's the message that you need to take home, Mzansi. It's everybody's responsibility to appreciate and respect everyone as a human being. As long as they're living their life and being proud about it, why should we discriminate? Why should we say anything less? Here's to pride, here's to you being you, and here's to us celebrating our true ethnic authenticity and our unique self, and that's us.